All right, get ready, because today we're going to dive deep into the world of supersonic and hypersonic flight. You know, where speed is like measured in Mach numbers. You ready to break the sound barrier?
Well, it's more than just breaking the sound barrier. It's about shattering what we think is possible when it comes to air travel. Forget those long flights. We're going to be talking about making travel times like a tiny fraction of what they are now.
So supersonic means faster than the speed of sound, right? Like 767 miles an hour. What actually happens when you go that fast?
You get a sonic boom. You know that loud crack you hear when a fighter jet flies over? That's a shock wave created by an object going faster than the sound.
So that's why supersonic flight over land is banned, right? Too noisy. What about hypersonic flight? How is that different?
Hypersonic is like supersonic on steroids. We're talking 5 times the speed of sound. Mach 5. Over 3,800 miles per hour.
That's incredibly fast, almost hard to imagine. We've got some cool sources for this deep dive today. We've got information from NASA's website about their X-59 Quest mission that's trying to make supersonic flight quieter. And we got a bunch of articles that explore hypersonic flight, too.
The X-59 Quest is a great example of how we're tackling these challenges. One of the biggest challenges with supersonic flight has been that sonic boom. NASA wants to change that.
So what's special about this X-59? It looks kind of like a needle, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's got a really long, thin fuselage. That's to minimize the shock waves from the sonic boom. What's really cool is that it was just shown to the public this year in January. You can even sign up to be a virtual passenger on their website.
I'm going to add that to my to-do list. So tell me more about this quieter sonic boom. Is it like a whisper?
Not quite a whisper. They want to make it more like a sonic thump. So more like thunder than a loud window-rattling boom.
So if this mission is successful, could we actually be able to fly supersonic over land again?
That's what everyone's hoping for. Imagine just getting on a supersonic jet and crossing the country in a couple of hours. That's the future NASA's working on.
Lockheed Martin's the prime contractor on this, right? They've got quite a history with cool aircraft. Let's talk about hypersonic flight for a second. How is that different?
Hypersonic flight is about going super fast and super high. We're talking vehicles that travel at Mach 5 or faster. Basically skimming space. Blurs the line between flight and space travel.
How did we even get to this point? Where did hypersonic flight begin?
Believe it or not, some of the first steps toward hypersonic flight were taken with rocket planes, like the X-15 back in the mid-20th century.
So we've been working on this for decades. I had no idea.
Absolutely. There were pioneers like Richard T. Whitcomb. He was known for his work on supersonic aerodynamics, and John Stack. He was super important in researching supersonic flight. They laid the foundation for everything we see today.
It's amazing to think about all these people working to push the limits. What does it even take to build a hypersonic vehicle? Can't be easy, right?
Definitely not. Designing and building hypersonic vehicles is incredibly complex. You can't just put a bigger engine on a regular plane. We're talking about some serious challenges, starting with heat.
Yeah, I can imagine flying that fast must create so much heat.
Yeah, it's like flying through an oven.
Yeah.
So we need materials that can withstand those temperatures. That's not easy. We also need to be able to dissipate that heat as well. Then there's aerodynamics.
Okay, so how is airflow different at hypersonic speeds?
It's totally different from what we see at subsonic or even supersonic speeds. You need special shapes and control surfaces to stay stable and maneuverable. And obviously you need an engine powerful enough to get to those speeds.
Yeah, I can only imagine the power it takes to get to Mach 5. What kind of engines are we talking about?
We're talking about scramjets and ramjets. They're specifically designed for hypersonic flight. They're way different from regular jet engines. They use the forward motion of the aircraft to compress the air. That makes them a lot more efficient at those high speeds.
So we've got all these big engineering challenges, but why even pursue hypersonic flight? What's the point?
That's what we're going to talk about next. Hypersonic flight is more than just going fast. We're talking revolutionizing travel, space exploration, even national defense. It's a total game changer.
All right, you've got my attention. We'll be right back to explore all of that. We're back, and we're talking about the why of hypersonic flight. It's more than just going fast, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're talking applications that could totally change the way we travel, explore space, and even defend ourselves. Let's start with the obvious one, how we get around.
Okay, so what would a world with hypersonic travel even look like?
Imagine this. You get on a plane in New York, and like 2 hours later, you're in London. Business trips would just be a day. You could go anywhere in the world for the weekend. It would totally shrink the world.
That sounds incredible, but let's be real. Even supersonic flights are expensive. Would hypersonic travel be even more expensive? Only for the super rich.
Yeah, at first, probably. It would be like the Concorde back in the day. But as the technology gets better and cheaper, more people would be able to afford it.
Makes sense. So it starts out exclusive, and then it becomes more mainstream, just like any new technology. But faster travel is just one thing, right?
Yeah.
What about space exploration? How would hypersonic flight change that?
Hypersonic flight could be how we get to space faster and cheaper. Think about it. Instead of huge rockets, we could have reusable space planes. They would take off from a runway, reach hypersonic speeds in the atmosphere, and then just go right into orbit.
That's like something out of a movie. How realistic is that?
It's getting more realistic all the time. Space planes could make space travel way cheaper and easier. That means more space tourism, more scientific research, maybe even building stuff in space.
Now you're talking. I love space. But let's talk about the military applications.
Yeah, that's a big one. Hypersonic missiles are already real, and they're so fast and maneuverable, regular defense systems can't even stop them.
So is this going to be another arms race? With everyone trying to build the fastest hypersonic weapons?
It's a possibility. Being able to hit targets anywhere in the world so quickly, that changes a lot of things. It could make things less stable.
It sounds like hypersonic flight could be good or bad. It could make travel and space exploration better, but it could also be dangerous for the military. How do we balance that?
That's the question, isn't it? It's all about responsible development. We need to work together to make sure hypersonic technology is used for good, not for starting wars.
So we need to be thinking about the ethics of it all, not just how to build faster things, but how to make sure this technology makes the world a better place.
Exactly. We need to have honest conversations about this. Scientists, politicians, philosophers, everyone needs to be involved.
Well said. It's not just about reaching new heights. It's about understanding how this technology can shape the future. But before we get too philosophical, let's go back to something you mentioned before, scientific research. How will hypersonic flight help us understand the world better?
Imagine studying air and materials at Mach 5. It's a whole new world for science. We could learn so much about aerodynamics, materials science, propulsion systems.
Because we can make new materials that can handle crazy temperatures and design better aircraft and just understand the physics of hypersonic flight better.
Exactly. And those discoveries could be used for so many other things, like new power plants or manufacturing processes.
Wow, it could change everything. It's not just about travel, it's about how we live and work.
It's an amazing time to be alive. Hypersonic flight is one of the most exciting things happening right now.
I totally agree. This has been a real eye-opener. We've learned about supersonic and hypersonic flight and how they could change travel, space exploration, and even the future of humanity. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
You're right. In the next part, we're going to talk about even crazier stuff, like traveling anywhere in the world in less than an hour, and hypersonic space planes that could make space travel like flying on a plane.
Okay, now you're really talking my language. I can't wait to hear about this. All right, we're back for the final part of our hypersonic deep dive. We've talked about quieter supersonic jets and how hypersonic speed could change travel and space exploration. Now we're going to get really futuristic. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. We've talked about shorter travel times and better space travel. But what if we could travel anywhere on Earth in under an hour?
Less than an hour. Come on. That's faster than it takes me to get to the store.
I know, right? It sounds crazy. But the science is there. If we can figure out how to maintain those speeds, you could be talking about crossing continents in minutes.
So what would that even mean for us?
Everything would change. How we live, work, connect with people.
Yeah.
Distance wouldn't matter anymore. You could have meetings across the world, visit family anywhere. It'd be a whole new world.
That's a huge change. But we've talked about all the challenges of hypersonic flight. Wouldn't it be even harder to do all of this?
Of course. We'd be pushing the limits of engineering. Heat, aerodynamics, propulsion, everything would have to be better. But humans are good at solving problems.
Yeah, we find a way. So let's say we figure it out. What about space? Could we get to space easier with all this?
Imagine space planes taking off like regular planes, going right into orbit.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's the future I want.
It would be a huge project. But think of what we could do. Space tourism, research, building things in space. It would be amazing.
We could actually live and work in space.
Exactly. We could become a spacefaring species.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've learned so much about supersonic and hypersonic flight, and how it could change travel, space, and even humanity. I'm amazed.
Me too. Hypersonic flight is more than just technology. It's about progress. It could change everything.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.